In Texas, they're going hog wild over wild hogs. The feral animals are causing hundreds of millions of dollars of damage.
Footage from a Texas hog eradication operation.
About the expansion of wild pigs is that they're starting to make their way into the northeastern states, and they can't be stopped.
2:47 in the morning, Point Coupé Parish, Louisiana. Colby Rames sits in the bed of a pickup at the edge of a soybean field, a controller in his lap and a tablet throwing pale light up across his face. 400 feet above him, a thermal drone flies a slow grid over 80 acres of black ground. The screen isn't showing him a field, it's showing him heat. 23 white shapes strung along a drainage ditch, moving the way hogs move, heads down, shoulders working, drifting as one body. The drone's software has already boxed each one and labeled it. Hog. Green boxes, confidence in the high 90s. This is the part of the job that stopped being interesting a long time ago. Then a 24th box opens at the tree line. The software tags it in under a second. The label reads Coyote. Confidence, 61%. And if you've followed this story at all these past few years, you already think you know what that label means. So did he. So did every hunter, every landowner, and every wildlife channel in the South. There is a very good, very well-documented reason that a coyote at the edge of a hog field is the least surprising thing on that screen. Except Colby doesn't call the shot. He watches it instead. Because the thing inside that box isn't doing anything a coyote does. It has flattened itself into the grass at the field edge and stopped moving entirely. It holds that position for 91 seconds, long enough that he checks whether the feed has frozen. Then it advances 4 steps and freezes again. The hogs never register it. The ground team never sees it. 40 seconds later, it's into the tree line, and the tracking box gives up and disappears. He flew that field for 2 more years. He never got a better guess out of the machine than the one it gave him that night, and the one it gave him that night was wrong. Before we get to what was actually inside that box, and to the reason a $30,000 AI system labeled it as something it had almost certainly never seen in its life, there's a simpler question sitting underneath all of it. Why is there a military-grade drone flying over a Louisiana bean field at 3 in the morning in the first place? The answer starts with an animal that was never supposed to be here. Feral hogs are not Louisiana wildlife. They descend from domestic pigs turned loose by Spanish expeditions in the 1500s, crossed later with escaped Eurasian wild boar. Louisiana now holds an estimated 900,000 across all 64 parishes. Nationwide, near 6 million in at least 41 states. But the number isn't the frightening part. The rate is. A sow produces 2 litters a year, 6 piglets each, and her daughters breed before their first birthday. Nothing here hunts them. A hog population can double in under a year. On the ground, that's a rice field intact at sunset and unrecoverable by sunrise. Not grazed, rooted, turned over, the way a tiller turns soil. The farmer doesn't lose one crop. He loses it and pays again to replace it. Seed, fuel, labor, weeks he doesn't have. And that only counts what fits on an invoice. Not the fouled creeks, the ground-nesting birds erased across whole parishes, or the family doing the arithmetic on a 5th generation. They fought it the way you'd expect. Fences, which hogs cleared or went under. Cage traps, which survivors teach their young to avoid after one attempt. Night hunting, season after season, none of it moved the number. You cannot shoot your way out of something that reproduces faster than you can pull a trigger. So at the end of the rope, they started making a phone call to the professionals, with equipment no farmer could justify buying. And it was that equipment, bought for one single purpose, that recorded something nobody was looking for. It's a drone carrying a cooled thermal sensor, military infrared, built to track people and vehicles. In the dark. Underneath it now, soybeans, sugarcane, rice. It flies a grid a few hundred feet up, and darkness becomes a live map where every warm body glows. The operator holds the shot until the whole sounder is accounted for, because if half survive, that half never comes back. But what's new isn't the heat camera, it's the layer running on top of it. Modern hog drones ship with onboard object detection, a network trained on tens of thousands of hours of aerial thermal footage, boxes each warm shape and labels it. Hog, deer, human, cow, dog. Here is what it cannot do. That model is what engineers call a closed set classifier. It was handed a list of answers and trained to sort the world into that list. It was never given the option to say, "I don't know." So when something enters the frame that isn't on the list, it hands over the nearest label it was taught, with a number that looks like certainty. Stack that on the thermal image. Infrared shows you heat, not an animal. From 400 feet, color is gone, pattern is gone, outline goes soft. What's left is a blob and the way it moves. Then add Louisiana. Signal dropping over cypress canopy. Dew on the lens. An operator on a monochrome screen since midnight. Which brings us back to the 24th box. The model had a list, and coyote was on it. What stood in that grass almost certainly wasn't. Nobody building a hog. Drone for the Gulf South would think to put it there. The AI didn't make a mistake. It answered the only question it was asked. Of the things I know, which is this closest to? Everyone downstream read that answer as an identification. If it had happened once, it would have stayed a strange night and nothing more. It happened again 11 days later. 2 parishes over, a different crew. Same posture, same stop-start advance. Same refusal to close. Then again, and again. Colby started pulling flight logs. Across 14 months, 17 nights in 4 parishes. Always at a field margin. Always alone. Always tagged coyote. Never above the mid-60s, where real coyotes sat above 90. Meanwhile, the landowners were finding dead hogs. And here is the detail that decided everything. The first kind was everywhere. Farrowing nests dug out. Whole litters gone. Piglets by the dozen, season after season. The second kind was rare. 5 or 6 in all. Not piglets, mid-sized hogs, 60, 80, 100 pounds. And they hadn't been left where they fell. They'd been dragged. For the first kind, there was already an answer. A good one. A correct one. Over the previous decade, researchers across Texas, Oklahoma, and Georgia documented something that changed the picture. Coyotes had started hunting hog piglets at scale. The evidence was not thin. Necropsies turned up fresh piglet tissue. Killed, not scavenged. Scat analysis in Georgia found piglet DNA across the state. Trail cameras caught coyotes working nests in groups, one drawing the sow off while the others came in. And where coyote populations were left alone, hog numbers started falling on their own. No traps, no helicopters, no budget. That finding is real. It spread fast, and it was in every particular true. It also explained the wrong thing. Because once a region agreed that coyotes kill hogs, nobody needed a second predator. The nests were coyotes, correct. The dragged carcasses got folded in too, because that explanation was already there, with peer review behind it. The software said coyote. The science said coyote. The neighbors said coyote. The case was closed before anybody opened it. And what closed it wasn't ignorance. It was a correct finding, standing in the right place to hide a second animal. Colby posted a 40-second clip to a hunting forum. 31 replies. 28 some version of that's a coyote man. 2 told him to clean his sensor. 1 told him he'd been up too long. He knew what a coyote looked like on thermal. That wasn't the argument. The argument was 4 things that never fit, and every one of them was about the dragged carcasses, not the nests. It was always alone. Not once across 17 nights was there a second animal at that field edge. The coyote strategy is built on numbers, and one animal cannot manufacture that chaos. It went after the wrong animals. Coyotes take piglets because a 200-pound sow will gore a 30-pound canid without breaking stride. These were well past piglet weight. The kills were buried, dragged 60 feet into the brush, then covered with leaf litter and branches. Concealed on purpose by an animal that intended to come back. Coyotes don't do that, and it moved wrong. A coyote crossing open ground trots. This shape held still for a minute and a half, advanced 4 steps, and froze again. That is not an animal foraging. That is an animal stalking. So he stopped asking what it was, and started asking what it couldn't be. The coyote goes first, on its own evidence. Pack hunter, piglet specialist, doesn't cache, doesn't stalk in increments. Against the dragged kills, it fails on all 4 counts. Which doesn't mean the coyotes were innocent. They emptied the nests, they just weren't doing the other thing. Feral dogs go second. Louisiana has them, and they'll kill livestock. But dogs are loud, careless with a carcass, and almost never work a field alone. A crew nearby would have heard them. The black bear is the serious candidate. Solitary, strong enough to kill a 100-pound hog, and a bear will cover a carcass and return to it. Then Colby stopped looking at how the shape moved and looked at its outline. A bear is bulk, high shoulder hump, mass carried forward. Even as a thermal blob, it reads wide and tall and dense. Shape on his screen was long, low, narrow through the body, its length running out behind it instead of stacking above. A bear plods. This thing poured. The bear is eliminated. And what's left is a description with no ambiguity. Hunts alone, takes prey many times a coyote's ceiling, caches a kill and returns, stalks in increments, and carries a long, low body built like a cat. In Louisiana, exactly one animal matches that portrait, and it is the one animal the state's own records say does not live here. Thermal was never going to finish this. It could tell him the shape was wrong. It could not tell him a name. So Colby went to the ground. He and 2 landowners mapped it out of the flight logs, the hog trails, the margins where the shape kept surfacing, the drag marks into the brush. Then they walked away. Then came the part nobody makes videos about. Weeks of nothing. A doe at dawn. A raccoon 3 feet from the lens. Whatever was out there knew how not to be photographed. And for 2 months it won. Then one morning in the 3rd month, on a camera nobody had hoped for, 40 seconds of infrared video. The clip opens with the animal already in frame, pressed so flat to the ground it reads as terrain. Its body is drawn out long and held tight, like something under tension. Then it starts to close. 1 step. Stop. Another. Stop. Head below the shoulders, chest nearly sweeping the dirt. Closing so slowly the frame counter is the only proof it's moving. 30 feet out, a hog is rooting with its back turned. And then the whole frame detonates. The animal covers the last of that distance in one burst the camera can barely resolve. A single line of motion into the hog's shoulder. The 2 go down and roll out of the shot. But in the half second it surged, the lens caught what 400 feet of thermal never could. A long heavy body under pale tawny fur. 4 broad paws. A skull too round for any canid. And behind it, a thick tail nearly as long as the animal itself. Nothing else in Louisiana has that tail. It was a mountain lion, cougar, puma, panther, whatever you grew up calling it. The big cat Louisiana's officials say has no breeding population here. And here is where it turns. Because the trail camera told Colby what. It didn't tell him how long. For that, he went back to the drone. He pulled all 17 nights, already watched, already dismissed, already filed, and watched them again knowing what he was looking at. It's in every one of them. The body length is wrong in all 17. The mass sits low and runs long, where a coyote sits high and short. The gait is wrong too. No trot, only that freeze and flow. And on 4 clips, a thin warm line trails off the back, held up and curled at the end. A tail rendered in heat. There is no canid in North America that produces that signature. It was on the drive the entire time. The drone caught a mountain lion hunting feral hogs. On 17 nights over 14 months, in a state that officially doesn't have them. In the act, with a timestamp and a GPS coordinate on every frame. Nobody could read the picture, including, especially, the machine that took it. Which raises a harder question than the one it just answered. If this animal isn't supposed to exist here, where did it come from? 2 centuries ago, the mountain lion ranged across nearly the entire continent. The widest natural range of any land mammal in the Americas. Then it was hunted and poisoned out of the eastern half. Today the breeding populations sit in 15 western states. But there's a trait in this species that keeps putting cats in places the maps say are empty. Young males don't get to stay home. The resident males will kill him if he lingers. So he leaves, and keeps leaving. Documented dispersals have carried them over 1,000 miles, swimming rivers, crossing interstates, skirting sleeping towns unseen. The animal in that footage was almost certainly one of those. A young male drifting east, running out of country, walking into a landscape carrying 900,000 hogs and nothing to hunt them. He didn't find somewhere to pass through. He found a reason to stop. And even where they live in numbers, these cats are close to invisible. They hunt alone, at night, and avoid people with near absolute instinct. And after a kill they bury the carcass, precisely what first told Colby he wasn't looking at a coyote, looking at him. An animal that size can live miles from a town for years and leave nothing but a paw print and a shape at the edge of somebody's headlights. Which is why a hog drone catching one mid-hunt 17 times isn't merely unusual. There is almost nothing else like it. One thing has to be said plainly, because in this part of the country the same two words always come out: Black Panther. Hunters across the South have described jet black cats slipping through the tree line at dusk. For as long as anybody's been telling stories here, it's a good story. It isn't a true one. There has never been a confirmed black-coated mountain lion in North America. Not a specimen, not a verified photograph. The gene that produces black jaguars and leopards has never been documented in this species, so the thing in that grass was not the monster out of the legend. It was rarer than that, and stranger, and completely real. A tawny ghost almost nobody here has seen clearly enough to prove. The AI was never lying. It answered the only question it knew: of my animals, which is this closest to 61% coyote. It had no category for a species the state says isn't here, so it gave the closest name it had, and every human in the chain did the same thing. The coyote research was real, and it explained the emptied nests correctly. So it got stretched to cover 5 carcasses it had no business covering, because it was already trusted. The machine's limits weren't in the sensor, they were in the list, and so were ours, and this is the thing the story keeps circling back to. People have spent years and enormous sums on an invasive species that outbreeds every method aimed at it. Meanwhile, an apex predator erased from this half of the continent, walked back in on its own, and did it for free at night, with no funding, no drone, no rifle, not $1 of anybody's money. Nobody can say where that cat is now. Mountain lions don't stay. It's likely hundreds of miles gone, crossing more dark country. Because there are hog drones flying most nights across Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and Alabama, and every one of them records thousands of hours of thermal footage on hard drives in trucks and spare bedrooms, never watched twice. Every flight is a wildlife survey nobody commissioned. Operators who called the equipment an expensive toy now fly most weeks. And biologists have started asking for the archives, for the clips where a heat signature refuses to move the way a hog moves. Nobody knows what's in them yet. So if a piece of farm equipment, bought for the single purpose of killing pigs, recorded an animal that officially does not live in this state 17 times, and every machine and every person called it a coyote, then what's already sitting on those drives, tagged wrong, that nobody has thought to look at twice? Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If this one got you, hit like and subscribe. It helps me keep making these. See you in the next one.